We're rolling.
Good afternoon. This is Jo Levy, and I'm interviewing him today. My name is Jo Reingold, and today is, what is today? Wednesday, January 16th, 2019. Hello, Joe. Good afternoon.
Hi, just to get the record straight for this recording, my name is Joseph Levy,
Yes.
and I go by Joe.
Okay.
I was born in a little town called Everett, Massachusetts, which is a suburb of Boston, and I was there until the age of 14. I lived in a very mixed neighborhood, came from a very poor family. My mother was a single parent of 3. I was the youngest, a mistake. They got divorced 2 years after I was born. And so I was raised in a single family home. And my mother used to have to pay somebody to take care of me while the other 2 were already in school. Then the Jewish yeshiva in town said to her, no, let us pick Joe up, Joseph at that time, by bus, and we'll take him to school every day and bring him back in the evening. At no cost to you, make your life a little bit easier. So I got to go to yeshiva, Wasitzitz, and I was from a non-religious family, so that was really something else. I continued until I was in the 2nd grade, kindergarten, 1st, 2nd grade, and when it came time to go into the 3rd grade, the school told my mother they had to keep me back because my vocabulary, English, I was terrible, but they were putting me in the 4th grade in Hebrew, because evidently I took to that. She decided it's time for me to go to public school. I'm old enough to walk home and be a latchkey kid. And so that's when I went to public school and repeated the 2nd grade in public school. I continued in school until, as I said, age 14. Last year of, at that time, it was called junior high, 7th, 8th, and 9th grade, and we moved to California. And we stayed with an aunt and uncle until we could find an apartment to live in. And in 1957 in Los Angeles, there was a lot of prejudice towards blacks, witnesses, Jews, and animals. And my mother would go to an apartment building, said for rent, and it would have a sign saying vacancy, no blacks, no witnesses, no dogs, and no Jews. Very out in the open. Nothing was hidden, not like things might have been today. Back then, everything was in the open, and there was a lot of prejudice and anti-Semitism in Los Angeles at the time, unless, I guess, you lived in a certain neighborhood. So eventually, she did find an apartment for us to live into, and it was a mixed neighborhood of black and white. And I went to the last part of junior high, and then went to high school. And at that point, we moved closer to the high school, and it was a Jewish neighborhood. It was all apartment buildings, mostly Jewish people. It was like a little ghetto, I'll say, because no wall, but we all lived in that area. And there was 2 synagogues, walking distance. I joined AZA so that I could meet other youth my age, and the AZA was held at one of the synagogues, and so I got to meet people, and I would go to synagogue because of that. But my family still didn't. I was the only one. And I did, and it was because of the upbringing that my mother sent me to Hebrew school for, in those days, it was 5 days a week, 2 hours a day, Monday through Friday, services on Saturday, and 2 hours on Sunday. So that was my upbringing in the Jewish religion, even though nobody else did that. It was really funny. I had an aunt who would come to visit us on Sunday morning, who was a convert. And she wouldn't eat anything in our home because we weren't kosher. She brought her own tea bag, her own cup. The only thing she'd take was hot water. It was really something else. And I'm named after her late husband. That's how so she was friendly with my mother because of that. My mother's family came to America from the Ukraine in 1905. And my mother was the first one born in her family in 1907. Her 2 older brothers were born in the Ukraine. It turned out to be 7 children, finally. And the house that she grew up in is still in the family, and I have cousins that live there today. Oh, wow. So that house is still, this many years later, still in the family. Back into California, went to high school, AZA boy. I wasn't content with just 1 chapter, so I joined a 2nd chapter, became a charter member of a 2nd chapter, became president. I was treasurer of one, president of the other. And in those days in Los Angeles, the youth groups, B'nai B'rith, whatever category, had their own services for high holidays. It was all run by the youth. It was all no adults, just strictly. And it was really, really enjoyable. And so that's where I went to services in those days. I decided that I did not like high school. I was there because I had to be, decided that nobody in my family had ever gone to college. I probably won't go to college. So in December of 1960, I went and enlisted in the Air Force with a deferment until I graduated high school, which I turned 18 on a Thursday, graduated on a Friday of January 27th, and went into service that next Monday and spent time in the service. They sent me to San Antonio, which is my first time here in Texas. And then about 2 months after that, basic training was over, they were sending me to a technical school in Biloxi, Mississippi. I thought things were bad in Los Angeles for Jewish people. Then I got to Biloxi, Mississippi and found out that there, they didn't like Jews, blacks, or Catholics, or anybody. If you were a Baptist, you were part of the group. And I hung around with some of the black troops, and we went to movie theaters that were strictly for black, or restaurants that were strictly black, because I could go to those, even though they couldn't go to the whites. And that was what I did, and I spent a year there. My first time going into Mississippi was on a bus from San Antonio, and when we crossed the border into Mississippi, the bus was stopped by men with shotguns on the highway, and they came on the bus to see if there were any Freedom Riders. And if you don't know what Freedom Rider was, in those days it was the ones that went mostly from the East Coast, and Jewish guys and girls, to sign up to vote for blacks. And they were checking for that. Even though we're all in uniform, they still walked through the whole bus checking. So that was my introduction to Biloxi, Mississippi, well, Mississippi, and then Biloxi, Mississippi. So that was the years up till then. And being Jewish was an oddity in the sense that not many guys were Jewish in the Air Force, except officers. So I went to services, and I went with the officers, and so I got to hang out with them, and we'd go to New Orleans to the Jewish Community Center, and it was only 90 miles down the highway, Highway 90 actually, and that's where we'd go and spend time. And then after that, they sent me, I put in to go to Japan, and they sent me to California, about 60 miles from where I'd gone to high school. So I did that, and the outfit they put me in was one that traveled. We didn't do anything. If we were on the base, we had no job. We traveled to other bases to do our work. And so I got to see a lot of the United States by going to these other bases. But since it was 60 miles when I was at the base, I'd go home for the weekend back to Los Angeles. Excuse me. And so therefore I hung around with a lot of the guys and girls at AZA and BBG that I was in with high school, but now it was B'nai B'rith Youth Organization. In April, May of 1963, I was in a bowling league, Sunday morning bowling league. Since I was there so often, I could be in a bowling league, B'nai B'rith. And my wife had come out from Detroit to move in with her brother and get away from Detroit and come there, started a new life here in California. And she was asked to substitute for somebody on a bowling team that we were bowling that day. And so I met her that way and asked her if she wanted to have lunch. And that's how our relationship started. She told me later that she told her friends that she was marrying me. Right then, from that first day. We bowled in the morning, so it was some time between that and lunch, and we went to a friend's house, had a swimming pool. They thought it'd be funny, and they threw me in the pool. But I had cowboy boots on, and I didn't want to get them wet. I didn't care about the jeans or whatever, so I kept my boots on the edge of the deck, and I got myself out of the pool, soaking wet, and they loaned me a pair of shorts to wear. And so I took her to lunch wearing cowboy boots and shorts, and she still married me. So it worked out okay. And that was how we got together, and we got married a year later, and have been married now for 54 years. 3 children, 8 grandchildren. We have still 4 in California, 2 of them are married. We have 2 here in Dallas, 1 at the University of Arizona in Tucson, 1 at the University of New Mexico in Albuquerque. No, excuse me, different grandchild, in the University of Colorado in Boulder. Then one of the grandchildren from California, he's at the University of New Mexico in Albuquerque. And then we have 3 little ones, 2 10-year-olds and a 12-year-old. The 1 10-year-old and 12-year-old live in the Austin area, and that's my son's children. And then the only girl out of the 8 lives in California. The 3 children, I was very, very lucky. They were all successful in their own way. The two girls don't work. They're stay-home moms. They're very lucky. They're fortunate that they married men that were very successful and that they could quit work at a certain point in their lives. My son, who's down in the Austin area, he had his own charter school that he owned in California, but felt he didn't want to raise the two adopted children that he had in California. He wanted to raise them somewhere else. I don't know whether he just threw a dart at the map and ended up in Pflugerville, but he did end up there, and he sold his shares of the charter school, and the Austin School District hired him, but they would only hire him as a teacher. So in August of that year, he started as a teacher, and by October of that year, he was assistant principal at one of the at-risk schools, and he dealt with children that were at risk. Today, he writes the curriculum of math and computer science for the Austin School District. So he's moved his way up there, not money-wise, but moved his way up there title-wise. Mm-hmm. So that's my children, and they, as I said, doing well. I had 3 careers. First, I started out in office machines. I went to work for IBM right out of the service, and they sent me to school in Kentucky to learn the Selectric typewriter. Nobody even uses a typewriter today. And I worked for them, but I wasn't quick enough on putting some of the parts together, and they let me go when I went back to California. And I went to work for a car rental agency, and then I met a girl that I'd gone to high school with, and she says, "Joe, you worked for IBM, and my husband and his brother owns an office machine repair company, they need somebody." So I went and talked to them, and they hired me, and at night I went to school learning different office machines. And I did that as a career, but I wanted more money, so I went to work at night as a clerk in a drugstore. Am I taking too long?
No.
No, I went to work as a clerk in a drugstore and found I enjoyed that more than working on office machines. So I finally got hired by the drugstore company as a manager trainee. And in 11 months, I became a first assistant. And in 5 years, I was a manager of a store.
Was this still in LA?
This is still, yes.
Okay.
Still, well, yes, in LA, but we had moved to the country and lived in Ventura County in a small farming community where the Reagan Library is today.
Okay.
Reagan Library. And that got too big, and we decided it was too many people there now. It's up to 100 and some people, 100 and some thousand. So we moved to the next city over, which was only 35,000. And when we left there, and 20-some years later, it was only 37,000. And that, so we were there. I left the retail management after 11 years because I never saw the kids. I was always at work. And I decided I had more to offer, so I took a job selling insurance. Went to work for Prudential. They sent me to school to be a manager because of my manager background. And I said, no, because if I'm not a manager, I make my own hours. If I'm a manager, I'm responsible for hours. So after a year, I left them and went to work as an independent insurance broker.
Okay.
And I did that for 40 years.
40?
40 years. It turned out to be a good job for me. I sold my company back in '05, kept a small interest in it, and then the partnerships fell apart. And so I had to come back to work to save my money, and the partnership divided up. We took the company to the city, we were in the small town that we were living in, and started a new company there. So that was in the end of 2007, and I did that till the end of 2012. Then I traded my shares of that company for a startup company that I didn't have to do any work in, and that's what I am today, is just part of that startup company, which now has been going on since 2012, so it's been 7 years, and it's been successful, so that was nice. So that was my career working. But back in the 80s, I had said to myself, we were making a decent living, not rich, but a decent living. Send our kids always to summer camp, Jewish summer camp called Brandeis Partying Institute. And they went there, and then eventually when they got older, they became counselors and stayed with that. My grandchildren also ended up going there. So I decided in the 80s that life is divided. You have a period of time where you learn, you earn, and you give. And by the 80s, I was in the giving stage. And that's when I started community service and giving back to the community. First, I started with the Selective Service Board for the area I lived in. I was appointed by Ronald Reagan, and I was on that board for 10 years. But that was national. But I also did things for Boys and Girls Club, for the Kiwanis, for the what have you. And I did that, and that was ongoing. I turned 65, I'm in this new office in a new town I lived in, but new office area, and I got a call one afternoon from one of my competitors. He says, Joe, how about we have lunch tomorrow? I said, well, sure, be glad to. You never know where business might come from.
Mhm.
And he took me to a Rotary meeting, Rotary International, local Rotary Club. And I saw, after going there, I said, oh, these are the people, they do the same thing I've been doing, except there's a club that does this. I said, this is perfect for me, and I joined them in 2008. And I concentrated on being part of that group of Rotary. I've since then gone to India to give polio drops to children. I've gone to Jamaica to work on water projects for schools that didn't have water. And the one that touched me the most was hearing aids for children in Tijuana, Mexico. Even though in India I dealt with babies and I held babies in my hand, put polio drops in their mouth, that wasn't as moving to me because you didn't see the end result. You just gave it, the mother takes the child back, that's it. Sure, you read that polio is eradicated now in India, but that takes time and what have you. But when I went to Tijuana, Mexico, and saw that child have the doctor put the hearing aids on, and that child heard its parents' voice for the first time, that meant a lot to me. That got to me, because now you're seeing something instantaneous, which we all like, is fast gratification. And so here was that. I've also worked with children oncology hospitals in Mexico, as well as regular hospitals as well. I've been to Mexico several times for different projects. And that's what I do now. I do that. I'm very active in that. I'm very active in Rotary. And so when I came here to Dallas, that was the first thing I did after we were settled, is join Rotary Club.
Okay, so I would like to know, why did you pick Dallas? How did you get here?
I drove.
And did you also throw a dart and just decide something?
No. We had been looking about retirement communities, even got a magazine subscription about retirement areas. What would be a nice place to retire? And the magazine was all about golf. Everything was golf, golf, golf.
Yeah.
I don't play golf. I tried it, didn't like it, don't play golf. I have a daughter here, and I had a son down in Pflugerville.
They were here before you?
They were already here.
Oh,
The
okay.
son-in-law in California says, you know what, I think I'm gonna be able to run the business in California, in Texas, instead of here, and I think we're gonna move the family. And so my wife and I heard that. This was May of 2015.
Mhm.
And we thought, you know, we're in our 70s. We should really consider doing it now while we're young enough to be able to do this. So we talked about it. We came here we'd been here visits before with a daughter. So we made a thing and we came and spent a little more time really looking around. And we decided, let's do it. So put the house up for sale, and I'm a wood turner. I'm a wood hobbyist. I had built a wood shop in my backyard, 400 square feet. I used to do projects and give my projects to charity to be sold. They'd go anywhere from $50 to $1,000. So it was really worthwhile. It made you feel good because you were giving things to charity. And I was selling off tools that I knew I could not come and bring here because I wouldn't have the same size property. I wouldn't have a workshop. And some of my tools were very big and heavy. So I started selling them. One of the people that came to see my shop and buy some tools said, you selling the house? And the sign hadn't gone up yet. I said, yeah, we're gonna sell the house. It goes on the market next Monday. This was a Thursday afternoon. He said, could I show mind if I look at the house and show him the house? And he calls me up on that Sunday morning. He says, can I bring my wife by to see the house? I said, sure.
It's a good sign.
On Tuesday, we sold the house
Oh, great.
without a realtor. It was very, very nice.
Very easy.
Very easy. So here we were starting to talk about it in May. November 20th, we were in Dallas. My son-in-law here says, you know, we have a big enough house. You come in and stay with us for 6 months, look around, see where you want to live. And I don't care that you bring the 3 cats and a dog. And our dog's 150 pounds, so it's not a little dog that you just fit anywhere. And I said, thank you, it's very nice. But we looked for a house on one of our visits. We found a house, so we stayed there only until we could close escrow. I wanted my privacy. I thought they should have their own privacy. So that's how we really got to Dallas. And Dallas had the economy that worked for us. In fact, on the news today, it says at $68,000 a year, you can live in Dallas and have a nice life. Well, in California, that same nice life, you'd have to make 100 and some thousand to do that. And so it was a no-brainer. As my friends get such a kick out of it when I send them the signs at the gas station at how much gas costs. We're paying under $2, they're paying over $4. So I rub it in a little bit. And
What was
that's
your
how-
daughter doing here already?
My son-in-law works for FedEx, and he got a promotion and brought to Dallas.
Okay.
Since then, he's got another promotion. He's the youngest vice president of FedEx stores. And he's the one who built their new building over there in the, across from Toyota. So that's how we got it. That's how, our son wanted us to move to the Austin area. We didn't want to be babysitters. We looked at the Austin area and felt that was for younger people. Everything that goes on there is more designed for the younger couples or singles. We're past that. We come to the book reviews here at the JCC.
Right.
We're past that, or like tonight, because we still give back to the community. We're doing food preparation for Feed the Children. It's dry food that gets sent to all over the world, depending, and we do that. We're doing that this evening because that's what we do. Francis and I, we give back to the community or the world at large. It's something we believe in, and that's what we do in life.
Are you doing anything specific with the Jewish community here?
Being a member.
Okay.
I'm a member of a kahila. There's about 20 families. How we got involved with them is my wife was in California. I had a chest pain. I knew myself, it had nothing to do with my heart, but I still went to the doctor. The doctor I had here in Dallas wasn't available, so they sent me to somebody in the same office. And he says, I want to do an EKG, and are you willing to see a cardiologist if I don't like what I see? Sure, that's why I'm here. So he did that, and he sat down with me. He said, see this little blip? I have no idea what this is. I don't know if it's serious enough, but I don't know what it is. He says, he says, you said you'd go to the cardiologist. I made you an appointment at two floors down, and I already made you an appointment. Come on, I'm going to take you. The doctor left his office and took me 2 floors down to this other office, sat me down, said, here's some paperwork to fill out. I'm going to go talk to the doctor. He went in and spoke to the doctor. I gave paperwork there. He left. He says, they'll call you. I went in there, and another EKG, and then the doctor came in, and he says, lay down. And then he said, never mind, sit up for a minute. I want to ask you some questions. So I knew right away there was nothing wrong with my heart. I was fine. He says, what synagogue did you join when you moved to Dallas? Then I really knew I had nothing wrong with me. And he says, we belong to a kahila. And why don't my wife and I pick you guys up this coming Saturday and we take you to services? Well, I wasn't ready for that, to be honest with you. I didn't go to that many services in California. Not that there was any Jewish synagogues in our city. We did have Chabad, but I only went high holidays or what have you. Or I'd go to holidays at a Reform synagogue that my wife's friend belonged to. Her husband was on the band and what have you, or orchestra, whatever you want to call it. So I had no affiliations over the years. When the kids were younger, I was a treasurer of a synagogue. So I was on the board and I'm very active, and the kids went through and bar mitzvah. But later on, as I got older, I would go less and less. And so I was hesitant, and I didn't go. My wife got sick later on, maybe a month later. I took her to an emergency room. I took her to the doctor. The doctor insisted she go to an emergency room. The emergency room says, I think you're okay, but I'd like you to go see a cardiologist. And I said, oh, we already know the name of one. I'll call and make an appointment. And so she now went to see Joel Rothman, Dr. Rothman. And he talked to her about synagogue. And so we ended up going to the kahila. And we've been going now for, I guess, 2 years. We've been going to the kahila. It's nice. It's only about 20 families. Service is for 2 hours. It's all lay people. Afterwards, it's lunch. It's really a pleasure. In fact, last year I was on their board, and I decided I had nothing to offer. I don't want to be on the board anymore. Because my feeling is in life that if you can't give, there's no reason to take the time to do it.
Okay. That's a good philosophy.
So that's where I am. That's who I am, what I am.
In your lifetime, can you think of anybody that might have been a role model for you or a strong influence on you?
I have to think on that because there was no male role model in my family, and so I can't say that. My grandparents died when I was very young, so I didn't have the grandparents to do that with. In fact, I didn't even meet my mother-in-law until the day of the wedding. And her father I didn't meet until maybe married for 2 years before, or a year before I met him. So poor people don't travel as much. I found that out. One of the things that did, and this sounds probably very stupid, but it's one of the things, is on Sundays I used to watch this hand-me-down TV, about 6 inches, about this big. And on Sunday evenings was a program called The Happy Wanderer. And every week he went someplace else. And as a poor child, I thought to myself, someday if I have money, I'm going to do that. Well, I've now been to about 75 to 80 countries.
Wow.
Because I finally had money and I decided doing that. So as far as a role model for that, yes, but I don't think I had an actual role model that made me who I am. I think a combination of myself and my wife made me who I am today.
Okay. And tell me something that you feel that you're very proud of in the course of your lifetime.
Giving back to the communities as well as the world at large, that to me is very important. I'm helping eradicate polio. I'm helping clean water. I'm helping health for women who don't have it in countries that, it's third world countries, they don't even have that. And I'm working on that. So those are the things that make me very proud of what I am and who I am. Yes, everybody says they're proud because they raise their children, they do that. Well, yes, but that's just part of life. That's what you're supposed to do. But giving back is something that you do because you want to.
Did you say you're part of a Rotary Club here in Dallas? Did you
Not
hook up
only
with
am I
them?
part of a Rotary Club, I'm a member, but I'm also on the district level where I'm the assistant. I was an assistant governor last year. This year I'm the governor's aide, and who knows where I'll go from here. I'll not be governor because it takes up too much time, and to be honest with you, I'm too old to be doing that, where you have to go visit 64 clubs and drive all over. I'm not ready to do that. I'll never be ready to do that.
Okay.
I'd rather save my energy to travel overseas to do projects instead.
Has your family increased at all since you've been here?
No.
Your immediate family?
Well, I shouldn't say that. Two granddaughter-in-laws. So yes, in that respect, but no great-grandchildren.
Oh, that's okay.
So that,
Granddaughter-in-laws
so
is good.
Two
Wonderful.
daughter-in-laws. So that's granddaughter-in-laws. That's the only growth to the family at this point.
And I just want to ask you, I know you've only been here a short while, but I'm always interested in hearing, have you seen any changes since you've come to Dallas?
Yes, I have found that right away we subscribe to the newspaper, because I always like reading the newspaper in the morning. But I've had to cancel the newspaper, because I'm different than a lot of Jewish people. I am very conservative, not very, what's the other word?
Liberal?
Liberal. I'm not very liberal. I believe in charity because I had charity as a kid. I give back. So I believe in all that. But I believe that it has to go to places that it should go to, and not just, oh, it's charity, let's go do that. So because of that, I canceled the paper because they became so liberal and so opposite of the way I think. And not only did I cancel it, but my neighbor next door canceled. So many people that I've met have canceled the paper for the same reasons. I was not a Republican when I came here to Texas. I was an independent. To me, I grew up as a Democrat because that's what my mother was, and I think that's what happens in life, is you just follow in the suit of your parents and what have you. My mother was very active in the polls. She always worked. Now, part of it was extra money for the family, and part of it because she felt civic duty to do it. During the Clinton years, I decided to become an independent. And I'm not trying to be political here. It has nothing to do with politics. But during those years, I felt they did things that I just couldn't live with, and I became an independent. And I stayed an independent until I moved here to Texas. All of my children have been Republicans since they learned to vote. None of them followed me, even though I was a Democrat, and then became independent. So we moved here, and I had to re-sign up to vote. I looked back at who I had voted for over the years. Which party did I vote for more often? And I decided I voted for more Republicans, so I decided I'd be a Republican. Not because I like a title, but you have to do one of them, and I wanted to be able to use the ballot. So I chose to be a Republican for that reason, because I don't spout politics and I don't march in in groups and I don't do any of that. I keep a very open mind. But here I am in Texas now, so that and the fact that I believe in guns, and I don't have a gun with me, but I believe in guns, and I have a permit where if I wanted to carry a gun, I can carry a gun. There's no reason for me to, so I don't, but I still have that permit because I know I can if I want to. And that's one of the things I like about Texas, is they don't say, no, no, you can't do something. They say, do it wisely. So learn, be wise, and then determine what you're going to do from there.
Very good. Is there anything else, Joe, that you'd like to add to the interview?
I'm very happy with the JCC. We have joined the JCC. Unfortunately, we don't take advantage of a lot of things because we live far enough away where it's actually a pain to just come here like going to the gym. So I belong to a gym instead of it's a half mile from the house. Much easier. And also it's free, where here I have to pay to be a member of the gym. There I get it for free as silver slippers, or silver sneakers, excuse me.
Right, right.
But we still like to go, we go to the book reviews all the time. We've become friends with Mona Allen and with Artie. So that was kind of a plus for us, is to meet them and become friends with them. In fact, they just moved to the neighborhood we live in.
Where do you live?
We live in what they call Preston Highlands, which is northeast of the corner of Frankfurt and Preston.
Okay.
So when we walk in the morning and we take a long walk, we end up in Plano and then back into Dallas. Because we walk every morning. We try to walk 2 to 3 miles a morning before breakfast.
Wonderful.
So we're trying to stay young and healthy. Well, it doesn't always work.
That's the key, young and healthy. Well, we're happy to have you here and hope that you continue to enjoy your life here in Dallas.
I find Dallas to be a lovely place to live. First time I've lived in a Jewish community in eons, since high school was the last time I lived in a Jewish community. So it's very nice living here in Dallas. It's nice having Jewish neighbors. Not every neighbor, but it's nice having Jewish neighbors.
Very good. Well, thank you very much.